My aunt has lived 20 plus years in a house originally built in the 1950s. For some reason, there is an old landline telephone, the kind that used two letters in combination with numbers, which is printed on a label, in the basement. My aunt never bothered to remove it, as she really doesn't use the basement except for laundry. Suddenly, in the past month or so, she has been hearing that phone ringing on numerous occasions. It is virtually impossible for it to do so. Not only is it an antiquated phone system, but the phone company it was through no longer exists, and the physical phone itself has had its cord cut. Had it been once or twice, I would have thought perhaps my aunt was dreaming and dismissed it, but it's happened at least half a dozen times now, at various times of day and night. I asked her to keep track of the specific days and times, as well as the number of rings if possible, but there doesn't seem to be any pattern. I know it sounds bizarre, but I trust my aunt 100%. She is not dishonest, nor an attention seeker. She does not abuse any substances, nor does she have a history of any mental illness. She has, however, been experiencing a number of strange paranormal type activity in the home over the past couple of years. I can only chalk this up to yet another. Neither of us can figure out who would be trying to reach her or why. My uncle and aunt bought a lovely bungalow in northwest Leicestershire. It had a decent-sized driveway, garage with a shelter before the garage even began, and a sauna. Toward the back of the house was a workshop and a long, expansive garden. After this, on the right, was a shed where the wood was stored for winter. The house was creepy. When my mother and I used to join our family at the local pub for the quiz, when I'd become bored, I would request to take the keys and go to the house to watch television. I would have the constant feeling of being watched from all of the windows. Retreating to the living room made it slightly better, but there was still the sense of being watched from the window which overlooked the garage shelter. Once, my mother and I lived in the property, and I awoke in the early hours to see two large yellow eyes on the wall in front of me. I disregarded this as a dream. It was my cousin's first house, and as she got older, she described feeling freaked out sleeping downstairs, and she witnessed a strange occurrence in the garden of something leaving the lawn quickly, but I cannot recall specifically what she described. But she also mentioned being able to see a creepy reflection in the washroom glass door. My uncle also had a few experiences where he thought someone was walking past the garden path and no one was there. And also, my aunt did not like the property. She felt uncomfortable living there. My direct experience with whatever was in the property was the week my mother passed away. As soon as I put my head down to sleep, I felt a finger inside the mattress scratching the nape of my neck. May I mention that my grandfather passed away at the property, but I do not feel that the incident involved my deceased relatives. Whatever was in the property was exploiting a weakness. Grief. I'd slept in the same room years before when I was much younger and never experienced anything physical. It was the first and only time I had been physically touched by something paranormal, and I was determined to not let it scare me out of the room. Once I had passed that test, I no longer felt frightened. My closing thoughts about the property is that it was a truly wonderful house. And if I was a spirit, I wouldn't want to leave either. There was a sense of pride about the spirit.
About 14 years ago, in an old council house that my wife and I had purchased, we often saw strange things that eventually became normal to us, so we just lived with it. We frequently invited friends over for BBQs and dinners, of course, with music and drinks. We noticed many orbs in the living room appearing in developed photos, literally dozens at a time. I still have the pictures. However, I had a very strange experience while lying in bed upstairs. For about a week, I would wake up at exactly 3:15 a.m. Every time I looked at the clock, I already knew it would say 3:15. I had an uneasy feeling, like something was about to happen, and my eyes would always go to the corner of the room. In that corner, there was an electric fan plugged into an extension lead on the floor with a red indicator light glowing. I remember this detail vividly. On the fourth night, I woke again and automatically looked toward that corner. It was dark, but not completely, just enough for the red light to illuminate the area. I saw something begin to take shape, the figure of a man squatting on the floor. Slowly, he turned to face me. I could clearly see the expression of pain on his face as he looked directly at me. His figure was solid, even blocking the glow of the indicator light. I froze, unable to react or panic, just staring at him. He was wearing ragged, dirty clothes. Then, suddenly, he vanished. I remained lying there, confused, but strangely calm. The next day, I told my family and friends about the experience as we discussed other strange things that had happened in the house. The following morning, I again woke up at 3:15. This time, already expecting something, I looked to the same corner. What I saw was like a small bundle of light rising from the floor, exactly where the figure had appeared before. The light slowly floated upward to the ceiling, moved to the center of the room just beneath the light, then lifted up into the light and vanished. After that night, I stopped waking up at 3:15, and I never saw it again. Later, after all of these experiences, including the orb photos, a friend of ours who was fascinated by this kind of thing did some research on the history of our house. He discovered that it had actually been built over an old Anglo-Saxon burial ground.